car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The Attorneys with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis Wright and host David Lamb.
Good evening and welcome in to The Attorneys. We so appreciate you being with us each and every Sunday night. We have a panel of experts dealing with an issue that, trust me, will be of interest to all of us. An interesting conversation and an interesting topic tonight. Before we jump into that, a couple of reminders. You can see the information at the bottom of the screen all throughout the program. If you'd like to join our conversation, we'd love to have you do so. Also, something neat that the attorneys at Hollis Wright do each and every Sunday night. Attorneys standing by live right now all throughout the program to take your calls. Those are free, confidential, and all-fair conversations. So if you actually want to speak with a live attorney, you get the opportunity to do so. Just pick up the phone and give them a call. Now, leading our conversation tonight, a partner at the firm of Hollis Wright, Carter Clay. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, David. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well, thank you.
Credit reports. Oh, it just
that
doesn't
topic
sound good.
doesn't roll off the tongue, does
No,
it?
it doesn't. But we're going to be talking tonight about credit reports and the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is federal law that governs the rights and responsibilities of individuals and the credit reporting agencies and vendors such as banks and things like that that will report information to the credit reporting agencies, because it can have a real impact on an individual's life. You don't want to be in those situations where you go to close on a house or you're going to get a loan and all of a sudden, as they run a credit reporting background check on you, these items pop up that either you were unaware of, or perhaps it was a small account that you didn't take care of and it negatively impacts your credit score, and all of a sudden that loan you thought you were going to get, you can't get. And we've got a great attorney to help walk us through and navigate our way through the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Whitney, thank you so much for being here. And this is Whitney Seals, an outstanding lawyer here in town.
Well, boy, I'm glad to be here, and this is an important topic for folks that watch the show. Credit reports. I mean, they can determine if you get a job, you get a house, transportation. We all grew up with the fear of the permanent record in school. You remember, oh, if you do this, it'll be on your permanent record.
Right.
We know there's no such thing. As adults, there is, and that's credit reports. And so that's why I'm here and happy to talk about that today.
Define what is a credit report and how does it get started for individuals?
Absolutely. A credit report is an accumulation, rather, of information. It deals with some basic background information, names, if you're female, maiden names, past addresses. It deals with accounts that you have had, open, close, and it's supposed to look back about 7 years. And the purpose of these credit reports is for companies to make decisions. Are you a good credit risk? Are you someone that we should lend money to? Historically, how have you reacted when you have been a borrower? Have you been responsible, irresponsible, etc.? And so it's an incredibly important document that follows every citizen in this country.
And are there companies out there that are in the business of gathering that information and developing credit reports for banks and institutions that you might borrow money from?
There are three main credit reporting agencies, and this is kind of how it works. You've got Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Those are what we call the big three in the business. They have what are called furnishers, a bank, a loan company, you name it. And they provide information on you. For example, if you have a mortgage, I can almost guarantee you your mortgage company every month is reporting whether or not you made your payment. If it's late, if you've made the correct payment, those sorts of things, and that information will be accumulated and assembled into a credit report, which is then sold to other companies that want to see if you're a good credit risk or not.
And of course, is Equifax the company that had the data breach issue several months ago?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Equifax got into some hot water, and rightly so, because when they have this much information about this many people, they are a prime target. And so yes, Equifax is the company that got into that trouble.
Well, and I actually personally got a notice from Equifax. Fortunately, my personal information was not taken in any way, but I got a notice that it might have been compromised or jeopardized in some way. And one of the things that they said I might want to consider doing is actually freezing the accounts with the big three credit reporting agencies so that people cannot get access to it. And I happen to be at a point in time where thankfully I'm not in borrowing any money, and so I paid $10 to have that done. Are you aware of that process at all?
Absolutely. And first off, I'm sure that your heart sunk when you got that letter. That's not a fun one to get, is it?
Yeah, well, it's better than getting the one where they tell me my information was actually compromised and somebody got a whole bunch of money. But anyway.
No, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the tools that can be used is freezing that information, putting certain blocks on there. So if you apply for credit, you may have to jump through a few more hoops, but you prove who you are and avoid identity theft, which we'll talk about today.
Yeah, is there a universally or generally accepted formula that the big three credit reporting agencies apply to in order to arrive at what a credit score is for a particular individual?
There are several programs. One of the biggest one is a program called Fair Isaac. Fair Isaac essentially looks at historically from the big three credit reporting agencies, because they're all a little different. Let me be frank about that, and that's another thing
well, that was
we'll
what
talk
I was going to
about.
ask you about. Should my score be the same across the board?
Within 10 or 20 points, it should be. If it's not, then you certainly want to look into the one that is wildly off to figure out what the problem is.
Okay.
Some questions we've got here. Appreciate folks chiming in. I've been receiving calls at all hours from a debt collector. Can a debt collector contact me anytime, any place?
Let me talk about that, because credit reporting is interesting in this aspect. If you are presumed to have an overdue debt, the debt collectors will pull your credit report. Off that, they will get your contact information, addresses, those sorts of things. And while I don't necessarily agree with it, that's a permissible purpose for pulling your credit. It doesn't affect your score, but it gives them a lot of information. Now, your question was about, or the caller's question was about calling at different hours. The rule is, and the law says, they have to call between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. local time. So if you've got somebody out west, they can't call their time. It's got to be whatever the time is at your house at that time. So the answer to that question is no, they may not call at all hours of the day and night.
And isn't there actually a separate federal statute that kind of governs and deals with that activity, which is the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act?
That's correct. And these sometimes dovetail. As I said, we call it consumer law. It's a sort of overbranching or overarching umbrella that these statutes fall under. And so, yes, there is the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which were sort of enacted at the same time.
Let's step aside right here, okay? We're going to, a lot of ground to cover, isn't there, with this subject. We'll jump right in to this conversation. Carter and Whitney will be back to pick up here in just a minute as we step aside. A reminder of how you can get those questions into us. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm. Thank you for watching The Attorneys. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple. Provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury-related topics, you can call, email, or text us. Or you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or simply contact us by going to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us watching The Attorneys.
Welcome back into the Attorney's Interesting Conversation tonight. Would love to have you join the conversation. Ways at the bottom of your screen for you to do so. Also, attorneys from Hollis Wright standing by live. They are live right now, so take advantage of the opportunity to speak with them. Leading our conversation from the firm of Hollis Wright is Carter Clay. Neat thing you guys do is how you all use social media. It's a really educational, informational resource.
Yeah, we've really made a concerted effort over the last couple of years to provide some of the same information we give to the viewers on the show, all through the social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram. And one of the things that we've done to sort of draw people to our Facebook page and Instagram page is to have these types of contests. Number one, we want to say thank you to the viewers for watching and supporting the show. And number two, we really do provide a lot of good, useful information through our Facebook page. We provide information about products being withdrawn from the market, drugs that are being scrutinized by the FDA. We put stuff out there about changes in the law relative to motor vehicle accidents and trucking accidents. We put stuff on there that you might not otherwise be able to get through other news platforms. And so what we have done in the past, and we're doing again, is we're going to have a drawing, a contest. And in this particular contest, we're going to give away the Alexa Echo Show system people can use in their houses, and they can get a wealth of information. It's actually got a monitor as part of this as well. You can ask Alexa for weather updates. You can get general information through Alexa. You can use it as an educational tool for your children. So there's just a lot of uses with this. And so we're going to do a drawing on June 5th, which is a Tuesday at noon on Facebook Live. The way to enter the contest is merely go to our Hollis Wright Facebook page, like and share the contest post so that we can encourage other people to join our Facebook page. And on Instagram, you can like and follow us on Instagram, and you will automatically be entered in the contest and eligible to win. One of these we're actually giving away two, so there'll be two winners.
Two winners, that's awesome. Just search the firm name, Hollis Wright. You'll find them there on Facebook as well as Instagram.
Now this is a more exciting topic than people having to worry about credit reporting. But let's jump back into credit reporting.
Sure.
Whitney, talk a little bit about how people can go about getting their credit reports from these big three companies, and how much does it cost?
Well, good news is it's free.
Okay.
The law says that you get one free credit report from each of the agencies every single year, every 12 months. The way you do that is the companies have set up a website called annualcreditreport.com. Annualcreditreport.com. Freecreditreport.com is a different circumstance. Annualcreditreport.com, if you log on to that, it'll ask you some very specific to you questions, and then you can save, copy, print, whatever you want, the credit reports, and you can look at them. And let me say this, if I may. One of the statistics that the audience saw was that only 39% have pulled these, and yet errors are rife. I'll give you an example. I had a woman recently who pulled it just on a whim, say, and it reported that she was deceased.
News to her.
News to her. So we have had a heck of a time trying to get the credit reporting agencies to realize that she is not deceased, but better to find out early than to go to get that mortgage, that car loan, that student loan, and then have something negative on there that impacts you.
Yeah, because there are a lot of individuals out there that will go years without borrowing money.
Correct.
And will go years without engaging in activities where a third-party vendor would need to pull a credit report.
Right.
And in those situations, if they don't ask for a credit report, they have no idea what's on there.
Correct.
And so how often do you recommend? Do you recommend people go ahead and get it once a year just to check it and see if there's any inaccurate information?
I do. One of the problems that we have and that we see in my practice a lot is identity theft. So if you're not checking on it, believe me, identity thieves are. And if you're one of those people that don't take out a lot of loans, typically you have somewhat better credit and you're a prime target. The best way to combat that is to pull it and look and see what's going on in the report.
And if a person does pull their credit report and they see something wrong with it, they see misinformation or inaccurate information, what should they do next and what steps should they go through to try and get it cleared up?
One of the absolute best tools in this act is to be able to dispute information on the credit report that's not correct. Now there's a number of ways you can do this. Each of the big three have a automated dispute system where you can go online. They have a phone dispute system, and then you also can contact them by mail. Now mail is a little old-fashioned, but I'm a big fan of that because you can keep a copy of the dispute, you can send it certified mail, you know that they got it, so that if they report back to you and say, well, we think it's accurate, or regardless of what you have told us or documents you provided, we disagree with you, you actually have something in writing that you can take, consult an attorney, and move forward that way. The sad reality is that these companies don't always believe the consumers over the companies, and so it's a difficult process sometimes to get this sort of information pulled off.
And what responsibilities do the big three credit reporting agencies have if you're contesting something on your credit report? I mean, do they have to do an investigation? How extensive an investigation? What is sort of the standard that applies there?
Absolutely. This is another one of the tools that helps consumers, or is designed to. If they get a dispute, say for example, you are disputing a balance with a mortgage, all right? Or you say, worse off, I've never had a mortgage, why is this showing a mortgage? You write to the credit reporting agency, you say, I am disputing this account. You provide your contact information, date of birth, social, that sort of thing. At that time, they are required by law, shall, which is the strongest word the law uses, conduct an investigation. Now, what is that? If you provide documents, they have to review the documents, and they have to provide them to the mortgage company along with your dispute. At that point, the mortgage company investigates and reports back to the credit reporting agency. If the mortgage company says, we're not sure what this is all about, then they have to pull it off of your credit. Okay. So that's sort of the short story long, the way you dispute it and the way you get it taken off.
And then I assume the credit reporting agency has to report back to the consumer or you and tell you what the results of their investigation were.
Good, bad, or ugly, they have to tell you what happened. Yeah.
A question we've got here, what are some of the things a debt collector must do as required by the Fdcpa?
Sure.
And a follow-up, are they supposed to notify me that they are attempting to collect the debt?
Sure. That's a great question, and a big part of the practice, both under Fair Credit and Fair Debt, deals with debt collectors, so I'm glad that the caller brought that up to us. They have to notify you in writing within 5 days of the first contact of your rights. It's called a mini Miranda, like the Miranda rights that we all know about. It tells you what you can do and cannot do. One, you are to know who the creditor is. Who are you collecting for? What amount are you collecting? And if you dispute it, how do I dispute it with you? They provide an address that you can dispute. They tell you you've got 30 days. And if you dispute it, typically in writing or over the phone, however, they have to stop collecting until they verify that the debt is accurate. Okay. So it's a protection that's provided to you. All too often, the debt collectors play fast and loose with what you can and cannot do. So that's another part of our litigation is looking at the letters to make sure they're accurate and that they're playing by the rules.
Right. Let's step aside, our final break of the evening. We'll come back and pick up and wrap things up here, but we got to take a break right now. As we do so, how you can join our conversation. We'd love to have you take advantage of that opportunity. A few minutes remaining. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm attorney Carter Clay with Hollis Wright Law Firm. If you've ever been involved in a civil lawsuit or been a witness to an accident, then you may have been asked to give deposition testimony. In this week's Legal 411, we are answering the question, what is a deposition and why am I being asked to give one? Depositions involve the process of a person giving under oath testimony that is outside of court. The person giving deposition testimony is referred to as the deponent. Depositions are taken in the presence of a court reporter, and the court reporter records the testimony. After the deposition, the attorneys for the parties received a typed transcript that contains all the questions that were asked by the attorneys, as well as the answers given by the deponent. The purpose of taking depositions is to ensure that the attorneys for the parties have a full and complete understanding of the events giving rise to the lawsuit, as well as an understanding of the testimony that they can expect to hear from witnesses at trial. Another reason an attorney might want to get deposition testimony is that it allows the attorneys to better prepare for trial and to develop a strategy for presenting the case to a judge or a jury. At trial, the deposition testimony can be used in several ways. First, if a witness on the stand deviates from the deposition testimony, an attorney can use the deposition to impeach the witness. Also, if a witness forgets certain facts or events, the deposition can be used to refresh the witness's recollection. Finally, in some instances when a witness simply cannot attend trial, the trial judge has the authority to allow the deposition testimony to be read to the jury. If you are a party to a lawsuit and are requested to give deposition testimony, your attorney will likely spend a significant amount of time preparing you for the deposition process to put you at ease and make you feel comfortable. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on WVTM 13.
Welcome back in to the attorneys. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. We've got just a few minutes remaining. This is our final segment, so if you want to take advantage of the opportunity to speak with the attorneys from Hollis Wright who are standing by live, you got a few minutes to do so, so take advantage of that. Carter?
Yeah, Whitney, we were talking at the break about the consumer challenging or contesting certain entries on their credit report when they're looking at it. And we talked a little bit about the responsibilities of the credit reporting agency and the entity that furnished the information to the credit reporting agency. But oftentimes there continues to be a disagreement between the consumer and the credit reporting agency. In other words, the credit reporting agency is saying, look, we verified it, it's accurate, you're wrong. But the consumer says, no, I'm not. And so at that point, they go seek legal counsel, go talk to somebody like yourself, and you may have to file a lawsuit to address the issue. Where is the lawsuit filed?
Sure.
Is it being brought pursuant to the Fair Credit Reporting Act? And what are the damages that can be claimed?
Okay, good questions. The lawsuit is filed in federal court, all right? Typically, the defendants in the case are the furnisher who's provided the bad information and the credit reporting agency, because both have independent duties to conduct an investigation. All too often we see what we call parroting, meaning the credit reporting agency says, does this person owe the debt? Without anything else, the company says, of course they do, and then you owe it, and then you can't get a mortgage or whatever. Lawsuit is filed and it says that those investigations are unreasonable, all right? What we have found so often, and this is what blows my mind in this climate of identity theft, is when a dispute comes in, credit reporting agency contacts a computer at the other company and then assigns the dispute to some offshore party in India, Argentina, who knows where, that they have no control over or don't really understand what they're doing, and that person is simply trained to mash a button, a letter goes out and says you owe the debt. And there's no investigation at all. And that's where most of our litigation comes from. The damages are pretty simple. You've got compensatory damages. Did you lose the right or the opportunity to get a mortgage? You tried to refinance and could have gotten a lower rate but now can't. Did you lose the opportunity for a car loan? Are you paying a higher interest rate? Were you unable to get financing at all through no fault of your own? Those are damages that we can put a dollar sign on. The ones that are more difficult are the emotional distress, the mental anguish. This really upsets people, and I think the way that we've been able to communicate this to juries are the 12 folks sitting in the box may not have ever had an injury in a car wreck or may not have been defrauded by a company, but all of us deal with financing. All of us deal with banks, the interminable waits online, the phone calls, those kinds of things. It's something that we all understand, and the Fair Credit Reporting Act is the only way to hold these folks accountable. Now, there have been damages up into the 6 and 7 figures. There have been very low damages. It just depends case by case. But one thing that's so good is they pay your attorney's fees if you're successful. So it does not cost the consumer anything. In the successful action, the companies will have to pay the lawyer that they hired.
And how do they define success? Just finding that the information was inaccurately reported? Is that deemed success even if you only get $1 of damage?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
What we look at so much is the investigation, because what the law says, it's got to be reasonable. And boy, that could be a number of things. But what we have found that's unreasonable is not reviewing the documents, not paying attention, not calling a third party. I had a case recently where a young man was sued over a debt in court, which was not his, and he won his case. He disputed it on the credit report and provided a copy of the court order that said, I don't owe this. Instead of investigating it properly, they simply said, no, you do owe it, and kept it on there, which caused him quite a bit of trouble. We thought it was unreasonable. The courts agreed that it was unreasonable to not even review what was sent.
Right. Well, I haven't handled a lot of these types of cases, certainly not as many as you have, but I have handled some in the past, and one of the challenges that I confronted in these cases was that while I had something that was inaccurate on the credit report and they discovered it as they were trying to, let's say, get a mortgage or get a loan.
Sure.
The problem that I was confronting is they had 3 or 4 items that were accurate involving maybe credit card debt that was years and years old, and so it was very difficult to prove that the incorrect entry is what caused them not to be able to get a loan. Is that something you confront?
That's something we confront from time to time. Some folks have better credit than others. However, I want to be very clear, this law was not designed for people with perfect credit. The law was designed to keep these companies in check and to make sure that they follow the law and investigate them. Whether you have the worst credit in the world or the best, they're under the same standard. They have to treat each dispute just like the others, and that's where we find the problems.
Yeah, I actually did. Probably the best case that I handled along these lines was on behalf of an individual that was trying to get a job with the Department of Defense, and he had to get a security clearance as part of that process, and they did a background check, which included getting a credit report on him, and he had information on there that was not his and that was inaccurate, and he could not get it resolved, so he came to me, and we filed a lawsuit. He wound up not getting that job because he couldn't get it cleared up in time to meet the deadline by the Department of Defense, and we were able to successfully get that resolved.
You know, these stories are all too common. I've had veterans. I had a case once where a gentleman was accused of taking out a credit card debt that went into default while he was serving on a submarine out in the ocean, and there's no way he could have accessed his credit, that sort of thing. And the problem was that, and this is why I think, unfortunately, lawyers have to be hired, is the credit reporting agencies don't always listen to the consumers, pay it lip service. They're more beholden to the people that pay them, the companies, than the consumers whose information they gather.
We got less than 3 minutes here, but want to try to get this question in from a viewer. I'm not disputing that I owe a debt. However, I'm tired of the incessant phone calls and letters. How can I stop a debt collector from contacting me?
All right. Well, the law allows consumers, such as the caller, to make this stop a couple of ways. One, if you tell the collector, I'm simply not going to pay this. For example, it's not your debt. They're calling on a Jason Lamb in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that's definitely not you. You can tell them, I will never pay this, send it to them in writing, and they're required to stop. If they continue, they violate the law.
Okay.
Also, you can tell them, if you dispute the debt, they have to stop while they verify it. That's another way. Another way simply is to tell them, this is not the way to communicate with me. You can't call me at work. You can't call me at home. Do not contact me again. If you want to in writing, that's fine, but that usually stops it.
So you got some power there. Less than 2 minutes remaining. I want to give both of you the opportunity for a final thought. And Whitney, if you would, you go first, please.
Absolutely. All of us need credit at some point. All of us have to use the banking system, the financial system. It's enmeshed in our society. It's part of being an American. One of the problems that I see over and over and over again are good, hardworking, honest folks that don't get a fair shake, that the companies do not listen to, simply because they aren't the consumer. They aren't the person paying the bills or toting the freight. It's a problem that we see, but it's an area of litigation that I think is important for everybody.
Absolutely.
Well, and as I listen to Whitney talk about this subject, the old expression, out of sight, out of mind, dawns on me, because you can't have that approach when it comes to your credit reports. Even if you're not trying to get a loan or buy a house, you need to follow up at least maybe once a year and get your credit report to check to see to whether you have any incorrect or inaccurate information on there, so that you can go ahead and challenge it and try and get it removed, so that when you get to a point to where you ever need to go to a bank and get a loan or get a mortgage, it will be clear, it will be complete and accurate, and it'll lessen the amount of trouble and problems you'll have.
Whitney, Carter, thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Some great information tonight. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining us as well. Always our pleasure whenever we're here with you on a Sunday night. We'll look for you next time. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.